We started this project because we wanted to talk to people who had resolved from something, either that be physical or emotional, something that pained them in the past and was not there for them anymore. Can you tell me a little bit about what you feel you've resolved from?
I think the condition that I've resolved. I feel that I'm on my way of resolving. It's an ongoing process, but it's working childhood trauma. Um, my mum sent me to her parents in Sierra Leone. I was born here in the UK, as I said, and my mum sent me to Sierra Leone, West Africa, as a youngster, as a 6-year-old kid, to escape from my father, who was physically and emotionally abusive to us as children. I guess that's the manifestations of the abandonment and feeling sort of out of sorts in different ways, and how that impacts on my emotional and physical behaviour. I feel that's an ongoing process that I've been able to deal with as I've gone through life.
What kind of symptoms did you notice that the abandonment and the trauma brought up for you in either currently or in your previous years?
I think what stands out for me is how angry I was, and I think feeling abandoned, feeling ashamed, feeling not belonging, feeling a low self-esteem, sort of lack of self-worth, which I understand it to be now, but as a child, I wouldn't have been aware of that. And it's about sort of making those sort of links and recognising you can do something about it that makes it, that I've realised now, obviously many years now, but also being able to talk about it, being able to sort of relate to other people, maybe in similar situations and that kind of stuff. Has it enabled me to be able to sort of make sense of things as I've got older, not maybe blame myself for things. So, yeah.
Was there a particular memory when you first worked out, oh, this is something that I can resolve? Or something like the beginning of you realised there was a journey where there was something, there was actually an issue, and then there's something you could...
Yeah, I think for me, the thing that really I realised that it wasn't my fault. I think that's the biggest learning thing that I got as I went through my teenage years and I got through adult, started to engage with other people with various different types of trauma. I realised that I had a gift, you could say, for listening to people and engaging people, and that enabled me to sort of self-diagnose and then sort of soothe myself, really. And that has been my journey. That's been a big part, a fundamental part of my journey, really.
I have a question that's more specifically about what you do as a psychotherapist, because obviously you help people in a very similar situation to yourself. Do you think that you started to help other people first, or do you think you started to recognise your own issues and then it amalgamated into your career?
I got into it because of my own anguish. And I think it was a therapeutic way of managing my own feelings, because part of the course you see your own therapist as well. And it's actually, for me, it was about dealing with difficult emotions on my own terms. So talking to someone about it, like I'm now, bringing those emotions up, but I'm doing it in a safe space. So that enables me to manage it, control it, I can deal with it, and without having to sort of lean on anything like alcohol or anything else to be able to deal with it. I can actually sort of talk about it. So yeah, and then I realised actually being a therapist, that journey, because I was a firefighter, and a lot of macho men back in the 80s and stuff, it was very sort of misogynistic and very sort of sexist and macho, and sort of a lot of testosterone everywhere, and a lot of alcoholic problems and domestic abuse. So men in particular, people, but mostly men, find it very difficult to manage their feelings and emotions, as opposed to talking about them. So around the mess table, I would be the one that would listen and talk to different people, usually on an individual basis, but sometimes collectively as a group. And that sort of worked really well from there. So that led me on to actually doing a course in the fire service, a listening course, and that. Oh, I like this. it was sort of self-healing, and then I went on to do some more courses and ended up sort of doing a degree and then a master's degree and so on. And sort of 8 years later, I qualified as a therapist.
You said how important it is to have a safe space to open up and express how you're feeling.
Yes.
What to you is a safe space?
To me, a safe space, gosh, this is quite a difficult question, because safe can be confidential, safe can be quiet, but you feel safe in the sense that the person that you're talking to, you can trust, and they're actually listening to what you say. So you're digging up some difficult emotions, but it's being heard, and you feel like you're being heard. So safe can have a number of different things, and even physically. I'm talking about, as a child, I was in Sierra Leone, so there was sort of war going on, and as a child I was almost a boy soldier, and it was really traumatic. It was very, very hostile, environment. So physically safe, so we talk about emotions. There are some people in parts of the world that really struggle with physically being safe. We talk about safe space with domestic violence and various things like that. So there's all different levels of being safe, emotionally, physically, and psychologically. Yeah. So, but for me, this is a safe space. Smiley face, and it's warm, so it's lovely.
Correct me if I'm wrong, would you say that the method that helped you solve or your ongoing solution to your previous trauma, the anger, the anguish, would be psychotherapy?
Certainly, being able to talk about it, being able to understand some of the emotions, and not being able to, we talk about labelling, we talk about diagnosis. So a lot of people, you're suffering from so-and-so, so-and-so, and that can ease some of the things, and you don't self-blame. But for me, it was about talking about it with my own therapist, ongoing therapy for many, many years. And sometimes they're not overtly physical. You don't overtly see the behaviour. Sometimes they're hidden. But the trauma can manifest itself in different ways. So as I'm sure you know. So yes, I would say psychotherapy for me has been a real therapeutic journey that's enabled me to be able to sort of manage my own anxieties, my own self-esteem, my own confidence, and that kind of stuff, and being able to help others to do the same.
How did you feel when you were given these labels to express, or what you're feeling is this thing? How does it feel to
It made sense. It felt good. It gave me, it took it out of me, and I was able to look at it. And I was able to look at it with someone else. So together we were able to look at it and make sense of it. If it's stuck inside, it's very difficult to explore it, especially with someone else. It's a bit like an emotion. How are you feeling? You explain that, and then you sort of try and make sense of it from that. So it has to be out there to get help. You can't keep it in. You've got to bring it out. So for me, it made sense to label it, but the label, it depends on what you do with that label. You don't use it as an excuse. You use it as to make sense of, and then being able to sort of work at it through there.
Is there any particular part of psychotherapy that you used on your own journey?
Yes, it was meditation. Meditation was a big part for me. I've been able to reflect and really look inwards. Was a massive part of my journey, and being able to, because it's one thing talking about it, and we can all sit here and agree and not agree, and we're cunning as human beings, so we can say the right things to the therapist and all that. But when you go back into your own space, and are you doing yourself a justice? Are you able to sort of change your behaviour by looking at your behaviour? That's the biggest part of the growth of therapy, I feel. And then as a therapist myself, I come back and I see the behaviour in my clients, and I see the change in them. That enables me to have faith in therapy, and vice versa. As a client for many years, therapy for me was really good, and in as much as I was able to reflect, use meditative practices really to be able to sort of work on myself, which has enabled me to give me that confidence, not only in my work but in my personal life as well.
How does meditation look for you? What do you do?
Ooh, that's varied. Meditation for me has changed. It's evolving. So I can meditate within 2 minutes. I could be in the shower and meditate. They can just be real small snippets of just eating, appreciating, just slowing down and just appreciating my food, appreciating my cup of tea. Even when I'm talking with people or engaging with people, I can meditate. I can use meditative practices, really, that just gives me that time to just hone in and just all that. So it's really hard I don't sit and sort of chant and all that kind of stuff, although I have done. I went to some Buddhist retreats. I've done a few of them, and they were helpful, but they were a little bit too intense for me and too elongated. So I sort of do short meditative stuff, mindfulness, and I do that at home. And I just feel that in the fast pace that we've got nowadays, with everyone going 100 miles an hour, for me, meditation is varied. So meditation can also, you can even, I do a lot of meditation on my own, but even with someone in the room, I can still meditate. So yeah, it's what it looks like for me.
Thank you. Say you had an uprising within you of something like an anger or an anguish or an anxiety. Which one would you go to? What would you do right now if you felt the negative emotion?
I think I've had quite a few of those, and I think I actually initially come to myself to make sense of it because I trust myself. I trust myself because I think I've armed myself with the skills enough to be able to manage it, irrespective of what was to come up, what difficult feeling and emotion, and I wouldn't act out. And then once I've made sense of it, then I'll take it to my therapist, and that's what I do. I have therapy. I used to have it weekly, it's now fortnightly, and I speak to her and I explain it to her, the difficult feelings and the burning. But I always start with myself because I think at the end of the day, it ends with yourself. So it's good to start with yourself, yeah.
Is there anything you felt that you had to change or in your life had to change or any barriers that you came across to starting your work?
Yes, I did. For example, the mere fact of talking therapy in my culture, African culture, talking isn't, you don't talk your business outside of the family. So straight away, that's something that I had to get over. And to want to do that as a living was was one hurdle certainly that needs to be challenged culturally. But back to what you were saying about, for me, I noticed whilst I was doing counselling and psychotherapy that my anger dissipated whilst I was in that process. Probably, as I say, 3 to 4 years it took, and people around me noticed I was less angry, less reactive to things, and I was able to sort of reflect a lot more. So that was certainly part of that journey in the first 4 years or so, I'd say.
How did you navigate that personally, of knowing that you don't come from this culture, and how did you feel more comfortable with something that was so unusual for you?
I've always been someone that likes doing things differently, challenging, outside the box. So I've always been different. I felt different, and it's okay. Even a name like Nandi, it was different in this culture, and even in Sierra Leone, it's an unusual name. But I'm okay to be different. For me, being different is not different. It's not that unusual. And so therefore, doing talking therapies within a culture that people don't talk about personal stuff, especially being a male, macho environments that I've been in, people don't talk. So again, that was different. And I just feel comfortable being different. And I'm okay with being different. As long as I can justify it to myself, then I'm okay with that. So as long as I'm comfortable with that, I try and make other people comfortable with talking therapy.
With your reduction and improvement in the anger and the anxiety and how you feel about yourself now, is there anything in your life you feel that you can do now that you couldn't do before?
Wow. Is there anything in my life that I can do now that I couldn't do before? Well, express myself. I think I can talk about my feelings and emotions without getting too animated, overly animated. I think I can articulate myself relatively well, the points that I want to put across without upsetting the other person, for the most part anyway. I feel that I can relate to people better, that maybe my anger and frustration would be in the way and would confuse communications with other people. I think that I'm a better communicator, and therefore, and I wouldn't have been many years ago, because of the frustration and anger. And again, go back to meditation. Meditation has enabled me to be able to sort of hone myself in, stay with myself, and that's been a big part of my process and my journey.
Did you try anything that helped with your anger anxiety before psychotherapy?
Certainly, boxing. I fought my way out of my anger, and that did work. It got me recognised, it got people to be scared of me, and it worked for a while. I was channeling my anger through boxing, through sports, through rugby. I got my aggression out in that way, mostly in a positive way. It was good. But as you get older, it doesn't fulfil the need. There's still anger there, and it manifests itself in different ways. So that will only go so far. So sport is a great outlet to offload, especially when you're young and you're not emotionally illiterate. So your inability to articulate your feelings so you can express it through physicality. But after a while, we have to grow up. Basically, we have to do things differently. And I think, again, for myself, I've been blessed to have found talking therapy, counselling and psychotherapy, been able to talk about emotions, articulate myself and express myself in different ways other than physically. So yes, sport was first, and it's still an element of a release, but I don't use it to release for anger, for example, or different things. My anger, I find it other ways to dissipate, and again, back to meditation for me works.
If you had, say, a very large bout of anger or anxiety come up for you, if your symptoms return like that, what do you do?
For me, if and when, and it has happened from time to time, that I feel very angry about something or very emotional about something. Say, for example, someone close to me, like my family or my daughter, for example, it may evoke something really deep within me that gets me angry, and I breathe. I breathe, and I love swimming. I've really taken into swimming. I mean, I don't know whether it's the embryonic, going back into the womb, or just floating and that kind of stuff. I really find that useful. So that's my first port of call. And I reflect. I do a lot of things. So things that, for example, in this day and age, technology. So a message may come through that I've read it the first time, and straight away it's got me angry. How I act, I breathe. I always react. Even when someone says something to me verbally in a conversation that evokes a difficult emotion, I use a 4-second rule. And I deliberately say 4 seconds and not 5 seconds because it's a bit different. So I literally take 4 seconds just to breathe and just to reflect on my answer, my response. And if I've got more time, I always say things like, I'll get back to you. So swimming and breathing are great. Not in that order necessarily. But and then after that, I would reflect on it and get back to them. Try and be as polite and kind as I can, without compromising myself too much. But something I've learned is I'll get back to you. I don't respond straight away. Say if it's a favour or something, I don't have to respond straight away. I think giving yourself time where you can is a very important strategy to use in all walks of life, I feel.
Why do you think that your symptoms, the anger, the anxiety, why do you think it came to you?
Why do I feel that my anger, all the different symptoms of my trauma came to me?
You specifically, rather than, say someone else had the identical upbringing to you but perhaps didn't have any of those, why do you think they came to you?
I think part of why the trauma has manifested itself in me in that way, in the way of feeling anxious maybe at times, or feeling angry certainly, or feeling alone, or feeling isolated, or not belonging, not connected, is because I've always been a sensitive person. Sensitivity, and I make no apologies for that, even within the macho environment that I've been in as I said, the army, the fire brigade, and various macho things, rugby and all that. I beat no bones about being sensitive and in touch with my feelings and emotions. And I think therefore you're more vulnerable. So it impacted me different than it would have been my brother, for example. So we are all different, whether it's nature or nurture, genetically or whatever. We are all different, even if we're all siblings. We will react differently. So that's fine. And I think that that's the reasons why it's impacted me in a way. But because it had such a profound impact, it's actually led me on this journey to become a therapist, I feel. To be able to, it's almost come full circle. So, yeah.
Thank you, Nan.